Stanley was on because we're talking about bureaucratic glut and the loss of legitimacy. And I was saying that would be our segue into the conversation with you. Full circle, everybody. We made it. Here we are. And so with that, you've got a new book coming out on legitimacy, on the legitimation crises occurring in liberal democracies today. And maybe do you want to share a few things about that, and then we'll kind of get into how that relates, how the good and the true and the beautiful relates to legitimacy.
Yeah, that book is coming out at the end of November with Edinburgh University Press, Legitimacy in Liberal Democracies. Very much looking forward to it coming out. The kind of central image in that book is the state as a hydra, right? I start in the book with this image of a dinosaur, again, coming back to dinosaurs, a big brachiosaurus with a very long neck, right? And, it's huge, and nothing can kill a huge dinosaur like that. No dinosaur, no matter how big and how many teeth you have, if you meet an adult brachiosaurus, you're not messing with that. You're not going anywhere near that. That's a bad time, right? So this brachiosaur, it doesn't fear anything. It dreads nothing. It faces no competition from anything else that lives, right? Just as liberal democracy, isn't worried about state socialism or fascism. Those are dead regimes that can't possibly threaten it. It's plodding along in the end of history, completely pleased with itself, right? But what if it walks into a tar pit? What if it walks into a tar pit? The fact that it's so big and heavy and powerful, those aren't necessarily advantages in a tar pit. And so my thought is that what has happened is that the state has started to become stuck. And this has a lot to do with capital mobility and how capital mobility undermines the ability of the state to act, right? It shrinks the state's policy options and makes more of the things that the state would do that would ordinarily be effective, ineffective, right? And so as this happens, the state begins to look illegitimate because it's not able to do the things that people expect it to do or that it has promised to do, right? And so part of how the state tries to keep itself going in this situation is by becoming a hydra. So instead of just one long dinosaur neck, now you have many necks sprouting and the head splitting, right? And each of these heads tells you a different story about what the state's for and what it does. And these different heads, they can eat leaves from different sides of the tar pit and continue to eat and breathe air and maybe even get some water from neighboring pools of water. And so for a long time, the state, by proliferating all these necks and heads, is able to stay alive, both in a physical sense and also in terms of, if you meet it, it's able to present a face to you that looks strong and compelling and potentially interesting for you, right? However, as more and more of these heads proliferate, the thing just gets heavier and heavier and heavier. It just sticks it ever more in the tar pit. And whenever there is a concerted effort by the state to get out of the pit, the different heads get in each other's way. They want to go different directions. They have different notions of how to get out of the pit. So these big necks, bang, they slam into each other. And the thing just starts thrashing and writhing and getting angry at itself as it's unable to move. This is kind of my image for what American democracy in particular is. But I think in general, liberal democracies are tending in this direction. And so if you're the vulture, you're circling above this thing, right? Because this is a thing that's very sick, but who knows how long it's going to be able to keep doing this, how long it can tread water in this tar pit, and how long it can play this game with the heads. And I think a lot of people who are in a kind of 20th century point of view think that if the state can't do what it promises to do or can't do what you expect it to do or what society expects it to do, thinking of society as some kind of unitary thing with a particular view, right? That this just produces a revolutionary crisis. But if you actually have a polyvalent state and a polyvalent society with the different parts approaching each other on many different levels, then there's just going to be a lot of confusion about what's going on. And you'll have a lot of immobility, but it won't be clear to people what the nature of this immobility is or where it's going or what it means. And people will throw out all kinds of weird and strange explanations that are partial and incorrect.
Mm-hmm.